2020 has been a crappy year for humanity. The COVID-19 pandemic delivered the greatest shock to the global economy since World War II. Its effects have been faster and more severe than the Great Depression and the 2008 global financial crisis. However, as we usher in the new year, hope is on the horizon. We thought, what better way to start on a good note by bringing you some uplifting news that highlights how Southeast Asia is navigating the new normal. So for our first video in 2021, we're going to answer the question, what's in store for Southeast Asia in the new year? My name is Angeline, and this is the Daily Watch. COVID-19, Southeast Asia versus the world. Okay, so we know that COVID-19 will be here to stay, at least in the foreseeable future. The good news is, despite the virus having a firm grip in Indonesia and the Philippines, most of the countries in Southeast Asia have so far escaped the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of the total number of more than 85 million reported cases and 1.8 million deaths globally at this time, Southeast Asia recorded approximately 1.5 million cases and 35,000 deaths, which represents a meager 1.8% of global confirmed cases and 1.9% of deaths. Take into account that Southeast Asia represents more than 8% of the world's population, we can say that the region has shown impressive results in managing and controlling the pandemic. COVID-19 vaccine. Perhaps one of the most awaited news in the midst of the pandemic is the availability of vaccines. Several countries in Southeast Asia have already started inoculation, or at the very least have signed deals to procure vaccines from manufacturers. Indonesia is set to start vaccinating its population against COVID-19 next week. Those in the 18 to 59-year-old bracket will receive the vaccines after health workers and public servants. It plans to vaccinate 16 million people a month. President Widodo pledged last year that Indonesians would get free vaccinations. In the Philippines, vaccinations could start as early as the first quarter of 2021 using China's Sinovac and Russia's Sputnik V shots. Priority for vaccinations will be given to medical frontliners and workers in industries deemed critical. It expects to inoculate about 25% of its population over the course of the year. Malaysia will provide vaccines free of charge to its nationals and will start vaccination in the first quarter with the aim of inoculating between 80% to 100% of its citizens. Singapore received its first shipment of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine on December 21st. It aims to vaccinate the entire adult population. Vaccines will be free for all Singaporeans and long-term residents. Thailand is currently expecting vaccines to be delivered in the middle of this year and plans to inoculate about 50% of its population. Vietnam is in talks with Pfizer and other medicine manufacturers in the US, UK, China, and Russia on acquiring coronavirus shots. It is also working on producing its own vaccine and expects that a national vaccine could be distributed to the general population in October 2021. Myanmar is seeking assistance from the Gavi and COVAX programs to acquire vaccines, while Australia is also providing financial relief. At present, the government aims to treat 20% of the most at risk in the country with vaccines. The four countries with the lowest total cases are Laos, Cambodia, Brunei, and East Timor, with no reported deaths apart from Brunei with 3. Laos has been trialing the Russian Sputnik V vaccine and is also in discussions with China about acquiring supplies. Cambodia is expected to import vaccines from both China and Russia, with Australia offering financial support to aid vaccine coverage. Brunei has joined the global COVAX scheme and is expecting to have the COVID-19 vaccine in Q1, having sourced enough supplies to cover 50% of the population. East Timor is receiving assistance from the Gavi Institute. Southeast Asia Internet Economy. No doubt the pandemic has changed the way people live and interact. There's been an uptake in the use of e-commerce platforms, food delivery apps, online media, and digital financial services, which contributed to a boost in Southeast Asia's internet economy, which exceeded $100 billion for the first time in 2020. The acceleration of the region's digital growth brings long-term effects to its overall economic growth, making Southeast Asia the world's growth engine. Catering to the growing digital demand, Southeast Asia is now home to 12 unicorn startups. Investments continue to pour into the region despite the pandemic. There are now more than 80 Sunicorns, or companies that are on track to be valued at $1 billion. This is an increase of 9 times over the last 5 years. While G7 countries continue to struggle with the economic fallout of the pandemic, everything looks a bit brighter in Southeast Asia. Technology will continue to play a leading role in the region in not only improving resilience to disasters such as COVID-19, but also to increase the uptake of digital services, tools, and solutions. Working remotely might continue to be a new norm, with most businesses resorting to flexible work schedules that allows half of the workforce to work from home while the rest work at the office. ASEAN is working on improving access and use of digital learning initiatives in member states, opening up major investment opportunities for providers of new educational technologies in a bid to transform the education sector. Reopening tourism. Southeast Asia has had some of the strictest border restrictions and closures since the pandemic began. While Europe has moved forward with reopening borders, countries in the region are proceeding with a much more cautious approach to inbound travel. But with a vaccine in sight, expect borders to gradually start reopening for tourism. As of December 2020, Thailand has been open for tourists, provided you comply with their strict COVID-19 measures and restrictions. Malaysia is allowing entry to medical tourists from designated countries. Singapore is planning to open for business travelers from all countries via travel bubbles, followed by strict restrictions. It remains open to visitors from Australia, Brunei, China, New Zealand, Taiwan, and Vietnam who want to visit for any type of reasons, including tourism, thanks to its air travel pass agreement. The Philippines plans to open its international borders in the second half of the year. We'll have to wait and see how border reopening pans out for the rest of the countries who are largely still closed for tourism. Even as news of effective vaccines cheers the world, the reality is the journey to a post-COVID-19 world will be long drawn. As overused as this phrase has been, it's true that we'll need to be able to adapt to the new normal. How do you feel about the prospects in Southeast Asia this year? Are you happy to leave 2020 behind? That's it for today. If you liked today's video or learned anything new, press the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to get the latest content from the Daily Watch. See you next time!